This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our now bi-weekly board chair check-in and update meeting. My name is Wilmarie Newton, and I will be moderating this call. In order to avoid background noise, I ask that you please mute yourself if you are not speaking. However, you can unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question, or you can type it into the chat box. If you are calling in from your cell phone, please take a moment to physically mute your cell phone, as I'm unable to mute you from my computer unless I mute all participants. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be archived on CABE's website under Services. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wilmarie. Good morning, everyone. I'm Patrice McCarthy, CABE's Deputy Director and General Counsel, and we're delighted you're able to join us for our check-in with our board chairs. I'd like to begin and ask Lisa to give you an update on an important free professional development opportunity for you. Lisa?
Great, thanks, Patrice. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I just wanted to remind you all that the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence is rolling out a 10-hour course that there is no charge for, thanks to the support of Dalio Education. While the target audience for this program is those who are in schools dealing directly with children, this program is open to board members as well. And I encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. It will be available until the end of 2020, and it rolls out next Wednesday, the 30th. I'm going to put the link to register in the chat box, so if you are interested in registering, you can do so. I would also share with you that your central office can, with one registration, register all the teachers in your school district as well. I'm not sure how the technology of that works, but on a conference call with the folks at Yale on Monday, I learned that. So just know that as well. But it is open to all of you. I will put the link there, as I said. So I suggest you all take advantage of it. We're all living in uncertain times, the same uncertain times, in stress, and certainly any nuggets we can get to help ourselves better navigate these times, I think the better off we all are. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Patrice.
Thanks, Lisa. And I know many members, if not all members of the CABE staff, are going to take advantage of this opportunity as well. I now want to introduce Don Harris. Don is president of CABE, as well as serving as chairman of the Bloomfield Board of Education and as a member of the State Board of Education. So Don wears many hats, and we very much appreciate the fact that he's going to introduce our special guest this morning. Don?
Thank you, Patrice. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce to you Wendy Shepard-Bannish. Wendy is the Director of Student Support Services in Bloomfield and has held that role since 2013. She comes to us with a rich educational background, to include a master's degree in clinical masters of education that she achieved in 2002. Wendy was originally a teacher in Springfield and taught in Springfield for 8 years. And we were fortunate enough in Bloomfield, and I was bright enough as at that time, the current principal of Bloomfield High School, to hire Wendy in 2004 to become a special ed teacher in the high school. She has gone on since 2004 to become the chair of the special ed department. She has been the teacher evaluation coordinator for the elementary schools. And in her current position as Director of Student Support Services, her responsibilities include compliance programming for IDEA, ADA, supervision of over 100 staff members, administrator of record for all alternative programming, district homeless liaison, district keeper of records, district medical supervisor. And since March of 2020, she was appointed as the COVID-19 liaison. So I thought I wore a lot of hats. I think Wendy probably wears more hats than I do. So it's a great deal of pleasure for me to be able to introduce to you Wendy Shepard-Bannish. Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Good morning, all. I'm very excited and thankful for the invitation today. It's been discussed frequently through the news media and in our educational circles, the disproportionate and adverse impact that the course of the pandemic has had on communities of color. This, of course, is particularly important to Bloomfield because of their demographic makeup of our students. So I've been asked to share today some of the obstacles and the successes that we've had with the provision of special education services over these last couple months. I've tried to thoughtfully put this together for you, and I hope I can do this story justice. As we all know, the devastating effects of COVID-19 reach far beyond its epidemiology. COVID-19 has become the great revealer of things. The virus has exposed and then exponentially intensified issues of socioeconomic and racial injustice in our country that desperately needs reform within our institutions. So for many families in Bloomfield, that means life has been forever altered. They've lost jobs, homes, loved ones. In a community with several multi-generational households, this sometimes meant families lost multiple family members. Several of our families are employed as essential workers and first responders who have been working nonstop around the clock. So the venture of doing remote learning has been particularly challenging for those families. Children were sometimes needed to be sent to live with relatives, and these circumstances all presented complex challenges for our educational community to overcome. It took some time for us to catch up with the families in the spring. For families having children with special needs, you can imagine that these hardships were even more compounded. In March, the definition of a free and appropriate public education changed for us, since the ability to even access and satisfy basic needs was a struggle for many of our families. Education became a secondary concern. There was little guidance from the federal level on proper provision of what IDEA and ADA services would look like in the midst of a pandemic. Our educational communities and our directors across the state were riddled with questions on proper process and procedure. We wondered what the long-term effects there would be for emergency disruption and our inability to provide services as written into the IEP. In the state, we are just beginning to see some of the fallout now, like a class action lawsuit from the brain injury group that just randomly wants to name every district in the country for failing to provide services during the pandemic. Directors didn't know how in the world we would catch up to all of the evaluations and the missed PPTs to be able to come back into compliance because of the spring closure. But even with all of those legal questions and issues, the focus here in Bloomfield was on the needs of the family, and that stayed at the center of our attention. In March, service staff was given 3 simple priority guiding principles. We are holding true to these objectives even now today as we launch into reentry. First objective, 1, take care of yourselves. There's a significant amount of secondary trauma that our staff faces when dealing with a crisis of this magnitude. I knew I had to be sensitive to that to keep staff motivated and engaged in problem solving for their students. I reminded them of the need that, when we go on planes, we have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves, right? So we can stay thinking and alert so we can be able to help others. They were reminded as they provided their services, they needed to do so in a way that was mindful of their own health and safety, and they were always to follow protocols. The second criteria and priority for us, central focus, was meet the needs of your families. Do whatever you can provide them the information they need to meet those basic needs. Our teachers and our staffs found themselves in roles that were typically filled by social workers, helping give families information on food services, how to file for unemployment, acquiring services for free internet and phone connections, where to find homeless shelters. We did a whole lot of reflective listening, and we grieved with our families. There was no time for idle hands in the district. All staff, and that included our non-certified staff members, were assigned responsibilities to support families. That meant some staff having to still perform roles that were out of their outlined job descriptions, or having to learn skill sets with little training in order to support the urgent needs of families. Staff even went so far as to deliver school binders and paper packets to homes who could not manage accessing remotely. The third area of focus for staff was provide the services in the IEP and the 504 to the greatest extent possible. There were no magic solutions here. Our ability to do that has been highly dependent on the relationships that staff has built with their families and their efforts to reach out and support. Staff and families decided to work together on what services from the IEP would be focused on. They discussed the model, the mode, and the time that the family could commit to help support remote learning. And that's particularly important with families with very young children. In the district, we loop with the majority of our providers here, meaning our service providers, our special education teachers, follow their children from year to year. This has worked to our advantage during the pandemic because the service teams then had 1 to 2 years to develop trusting relationships with their families. They had over a year in most cases of history of performance data on students to have a deep understanding of their student needs and to be able to focus on what the academics should look like. These close relationships manifested staff into adopting a whatever it takes philosophy for their students. This was evident to me in the 10 and 11 o'clock at night texts that I got from staff because they were up just desperately trying to problem solve for their students and they needed some advice. I received phone calls from hospitals on Sundays, from school psychologists and social workers who were committed to supporting their families through this grieving time. Educators were offering their services out of contractual hours and on weekends and into the evening, also that families that were having difficulty connecting during the day could find a way to manage and connect. As we planned for reentry, the conditions in the spring were not forgotten. Bloomfield understands that we needed to protect our community that is disproportionately affected by this pandemic. So health and safety has been at the center of our reentry planning, and we are mindful to layer in the highest levels of mitigation wherever we can, keeping class sizes small for cohorting and maximizing social distance. For support service staff, the guiding principles on reentry have remained the same. Take care of yourselves, first priority. Wear the full appropriate PPE when required. Follow the protocols. Stay safe so you can continue to stay healthy and serve your children. Take care of your families. Meet their needs. Listen to their stories and understand the struggles. With that, then you can have discussions about programming so we can meet the third requirement of filling the needs of the IEP to the greatest extent possible. Over the last 3 years, Bloomfield has done a significant amount of work with the social and emotional learning. We have worked with the Yale Study Center as well and the Gazelle Institute, and we've implemented trauma-informed practices into our curriculum. We spent several days last year understanding the ACEs study and learning about the effects of adverse childhood experiences and what that does to learning and health. All this work suddenly became powerfully relevant when the effects of the pandemic revealed themselves. And I believe this front-loaded professional development is the reason staff was able to be responsive to families and overcome their obstacles. Staff response upon return this year has been nothing less than heroic in their efforts. For support services, we've prioritized our students who were most impacted in the spring. So while the rest of the district is currently functioning on a hybrid schedule, our students with the most significant needs and substantially separate programming are offered fuller days and weeks of brick and mortar learning. The needs of the children are so significant that many of them struggle to meet mask expectations, or they require hand-over-hand instruction to support with curriculum and with hygiene needs. You can come into a classroom and you might think that you're visiting an OR with the amount of PPE that the staff is required to wear to keep everyone safe at this time. They're working with families to come to decisions on what services will look like, both for the hybrid model and for planning for distance learning in the case of another emergency closure. We're writing those plans in the learning implementation plan template that the state has provided us. We have no magic answers to any of this or any systems that work. Our success is strongly dependent on the relationship and the constant communication we have with families. If children are learning from a distance, then it is required in the district that face-to-face virtual services are delivered daily. For our students in that substantially separate programming, that happens in real time so that we can still include our children into their classrooms and they can see their friends. Staff understands we need to be open to jumping out of the box for service delivery. We do not adhere to a one-size-fits-all model in either hybrid or distance learning. It can just, because that just won't work for our families. We craft our services along a continuum of ideas based on individual students and the individual family's current needs. We find common ground and come up with mutually agreeable solutions between the families and our school-based teams. Our greatest obstacles right now are the significant number of students with special education services who parents have elected to be distance learners because their families are concerned about the safety and well-being of their family members. Special education services and distance learning do not complement one another, and it's a very difficult task. We're open to learning new ways to do things every day. I believe that collaboration has been the key for all districts throughout this process, not only among your district staff, but from district to district. So our educators can provide more opportunities to share practice as we get through this together. For some students, we have started to offer itinerant services by appointment. So if they're distance learners and they're not accessing very well remotely any of those services, we have them schedule appointments with the school. This is specifically for services that cannot just be delivered successfully remotely. Like everyone else, we're digging out of the non-compliance hole that was dug in the spring due to the sudden closure. Staff are working diligently to recover from the time lost in the spring for testing and annual meetings that were unable to take place. And it's a delicate dance of making sure that we are focusing our limited time on the children as opposed to just paperwork and compliance, because at the end of the day, it is the children that are most important. Some of our families still struggle even now to make the students available for appointments in order to get tested or get their services. And so your directors across the state and support service staff need advocacy by these groups to help support them in those efforts. So with that, I'll close. I've tried to capture that as best I can, and I'll open up to any questions that you may have of me.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That was a wonderful view and a very important focus on recognizing the needs of the families and the challenges that they face, which is, if we can't address them, that makes it all most harder to get to the academic issues.
Absolutely.
Will Marie, do we have questions?
No questions in the chat box so far.
All right. I'm going to open it up to our board chairs. I have a question, Wendy. You talked about staff and their willingness to work outside of their normal job descriptions, outside of their normal workday. Did the district have to negotiate any modifications to the collective bargaining agreements that you're aware of?
So my feeling on that is our staff was so committed to their families, and in that urgent emergency situation, staff was just able to do whatever they can. as we have come back into reentry and planned for those things, we have our heads around us better to be able to kind of meet the needs of those families. A lot, as I said, the looping has served us very well. So teachers could come back and already know the situation that was happening with many of their families and be able to continue to either implement the plans that were put in place in the spring or understand the needs enough to be able to problem solve through it right now with the hybrid model or things like that. We have a couple of students that have such medically complicated needs that they are homebound. And so I do have a few staff that are working outside contractual hours, but they get reimbursement for any time that they do have to go and provide services within the home.
Terrific. It really emphasizes the value and importance of those positive relationships that obviously you have with the staff, as well as relationships with families.
Thank you.
Questions?
I'm just wondering, Wendy, if you want to share how things are proceeding since the start of the school year on September 8th in Bloomfield.
We've had very positive results so far. Things have been extremely quiet for Bloomfield so far. Our distance learners are fully engaged. We have able to reach and engage the majority of our families that elected distance learning. In terms of the hybrid model, we function on an AB cohort. So the first 50% of the students attend school on Monday and Tuesday. We do have remote learning for all on Wednesday. And then the second 50% of the students who have elected hybrid attend on Thursdays and Fridays. And that has been going very well so far. All of the health and safety protocols are put in place. The staff have reported that they feel very safe. So we haven't struggled with some of the issues that maybe some districts have on staff being concerned. And things are quiet and moving ahead nicely so far.
Terrific.
And I might add, Patrice, and this may or may not really be a part, but at our board meeting last week, Tuesday, the president of our local teachers union, and for us, we're aligned with the CEA. She got up at the board meeting under public comment and did 3 to 5 minute talk about how pleased she was and all the steps that were taken and how satisfied the teachers are in Bloomfield for doing what we're doing and for taking the safety of the kids first and et cetera. But just overall, how pleased the teachers are with the way things are going in Bloomfield for all of the students. So, and you need to cherish those moments as board members because you don't often get those. So.
And those of us who hear many concerns at the state level need to cherish those local moments as well and celebrate the fact that it's wonderful that things are going so well in Bloomfield. And I think that that is perhaps not necessarily the exception, that we have a lot of good examples around the state of successful reopenings that focus on the health and safety of staff and students, and that allows learning to go forward.
Yep, absolutely.
Anyone else have a question for Wendy or a comment on the challenges in your communities of providing appropriate special education services in this environment?
Good morning, Wendy. This is Jean. I'm from Basra.
Hi, Jean.
Hi. So one of the concerns we're hearing from parents, not just special ed, but especially special ed, is our current inability right now due to technology and training to live stream classrooms so that the fully remote distance learners, especially those that do have an IEP, are not able to be fully integrated in with their peers during the day. We are obviously working to go to the ability to do live streaming, but we just don't have the resources at this time to do it. Does Bloomfield do that? And maybe you could provide some tips so we could learn how to do it more easily. Right now, we feel like we have a technology blockage, but maybe there are some easier ways to achieve that.
Yep. So I think several districts are still struggling with that. We are moving towards that as well. We were not in a position in March where we were a one-to-one district or very proficient at delivering the curriculum remotely either. So we are learning. We've got webcams on order that are being placed in the classrooms at this minute. I can speak specifically for how we've been able to problem solve for our support service needs. While we're waiting for, the larger technology piece to fall into place. So I had articulated in the article about how we don't have any idle hands in the district, and we make sure that all of our resources and our individuals are being used to the maximum extent possible. So one of the ways we've been able to include children in the classroom if we don't have live streams is to make sure that our IAs that typically support the kiddos that would be like maybe one-to-one in the classroom, instead they have a Chromebook and they're bringing that kiddo into the classroom live with the Chromebook so they can participate. Sometimes the Chromebook is even, propped up on a podium so that they can see the teacher and then participate with their class members on stream. So that's just kind of little problem solving ways like that we've managed to navigate the terrain right now while we're waiting for those larger technological issues to resolve themselves as well.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, with that, I think, especially out of respect to Wendy's time and the fact that she has so many hats to wear, we want to extend our great appreciation for your willingness to be with us this morning and share the experiences in Bloomfield for your students. And we wish you well as you continue to navigate what will undoubtedly continue to be a challenging school year.
Yes, thank you so much again, everybody, for the invitation and the time, and good luck to all as we all navigate the course of this pandemic together and serving our kids. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wendy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, we now want to open it up to the board chairs to discuss challenges you're facing, successes that you're having, questions that the staff, most of the senior staff are, as they are for each of these calls, are on the line. So I know that some of you have faced the challenges of, as you move to in-person board meetings, community members not understanding why they too can't be there in person. I know one district received 200 written communications prior to a board meeting. And I just envisioned that if they opened that up to public attendance, you could easily have 200 people in a space, even if you're meeting in a school auditorium or cafeteria, where you would not be able to provide the appropriate physical distancing, which to me is the biggest rationale for maintaining virtual public participation. But just one issue that seems to keep cropping up again and again. Issues from the board chairs.
I have a question, Patrice.
Go ahead, Candace.
Okay, thanks. I'm just curious, is anybody keeping tabs, or does anyone want to share about districts that have begun the school year hybrid and then are trying to evaluate if all or any part of their districts can return fully in person? I know some districts set a date. We did not. We left everything very kind of open-ended, but I feel like we're struggling a little bit with that open-endedness. And I feel like at some point we have to say either we're never going to do it or we're doing it. And I'm not sure, you know, I'm curious how other districts are navigating that.
Katie, do you want to comment? I see you've posted something in the chat.
I don't know if you can hear me, can you?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So in Madison, we started with the understanding that this was a phased-in approach and started with the hybrid model, but it is our plan to start fully in person in the beginning of October. And we don't have a hard and fast date yet because we're still awaiting some furniture deliveries. But that is our plan.
Great.
And can I just ask a follow-up question on that?
Go ahead.
So will you be essentially putting the social distancing to the side? In other words, that's the struggle. Like, in order to go back fully, we have to say we're not really.
Katie, are you able to respond?
I lost Candace, so I didn't hear the end.
I can read the question. She asked whether you'll be able to maintain the physical distancing if you go in full in person.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we had to order more furniture, because tables weren't going to work in our elementary schools. And so between added spaces like gyms and cafeterias and faculty rooms, we have our high school, I should mention, is going to be half day. 5 days a week, but half day for each cohort. But for K through 8, it will be 5 days in person, and we will maintain social distancing as recommended.
Great. When you refer to the fact that high school will be shorter days, will all the students be all the students who opt for in-person learning, will they be in the building at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I'm sorry, not at the same time. We'll have half in the morning for periods 1 through 4, and then we'll flip in the afternoon.
Okay, great. Thanks. Anyone else want to share? I believe that Rocky Hill is either already full in person or is moving to full in person. But that's just based on things that I've seen in the press.
And are they able to social distance?
I believe they are. Some of the districts that have been able to do full in person, it's because they have a significant number of families that have opted for distance learning. So it's not, it's full in person for everyone that wants that option.
Yeah, Patrice, I should also mention that we know that there will be more families that were doing the hybrid model that will choose distance learning because of the full 5 days. So we're expecting, I think we were at 3% that were doing distance learning, and we expect that number might go up slightly.
Thanks.
Whoever's having that private conversation out there needs to mute.
Yeah, so someone.
Well, I'm sorry. I think it's Katie. She might be at work, so I think it's picking
I'm at
up.
work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Margaret in Ridgefield, do you want to share what you're doing?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thanks. Yeah, so we had set September 29th as our full reopening target date for elementary and middle schools. High school, we knew because of cohorting and social distancing, we'd need to remain in a hybrid model at least through the first quarter and would assess at that time. So it was under a different assessment timeline. But as the district looked at, well, they sent a survey out to parents asking who would, at elementary school and middle school, if we were to open up fully, and move out of the hybrid model, how many would choose to remain distance learning and how many would choose to come back into school. And what we found was that pretty much 80% of our families wanted the students to come back full time, and that posed a challenge from a social distancing standpoint at our middle schools. So while we are going to be able to move ahead with the full in-person starting on September 29th as we had planned, earlier this week we had to let our community know that middle school, we cannot go back to full in-person. And it's exactly for the reason you mentioned, Candace. We just can't maintain social distancing with the number of families that would choose to have their children in full time. So when we will reassess that, that will at least exist through the quarter. But honestly, the conversation was really until the guidelines change on the guidance for those mitigation strategies, it's likely that our middle schools will have to stay in a hybrid model, or unless we hear overwhelmingly that more families will choose to keep their children learning remotely, which does not seem like that will be happening.
It's incredibly ironic that the reason in a number of districts that you can't move to full in-person for some of your grade levels is because so many families want that experience.
That's exactly the case.
Let's see, New Canaan, Katrina in New Canaan, are you available to share what you're doing?
Sure, I'm here.
Great.
We opened K-12 in a hybrid model on August 30th, and we spent, the district had outlined plans and target dates to return to in-person learning beginning this past Monday. And we felt comfortable given the metrics and how everything had been going to move forward. But we adjusted our plan slightly, just hearing feedback from the teachers and just realizing how much hard work it is for everyone to accommodate students and practicing the mitigation strategies and making sure that everybody was wearing masks. We decided to have a two-phase approach within our elementary schools. So we brought K-2 back on Monday, a full day. And then today our 3rd and 4th graders are back. And things have been going very well. There's been some issues with traffic at the schools and just adjusting the custodial staff, obviously has a lot more work on their hands now, and the cafeteria model, all of that, phasing in the two, splitting the school in half almost allows time to adjust plans in the cafeteria, lunch, and just, make small adjustments. And I think it's increased the confidence, of our staff and our teachers, and just demonstrating that we're willing to go slowly and thoughtfully. So we met as a reopen committee yesterday and made the decision. We had in our plans set a date for this coming Tuesday, the 29th, to return our middle school, which in New Canaan is 5th through 8th grade. We decided to bring back 5th grade only next week, and again, just allow the middle school some time to adjust and learn from, having a number of kids in the building. And then on those days, they'll also have 6th through 8th grade in the hybrid model still. And then the following week, we'll look at bringing 6th grade in on October 5th. We have had some COVID cases this week in the high school, so we put 7th through 12th on an indefinite hold for now, and we'll just continue in the hybrid model until we see how 5th and 6th grade work in the middle school setting. So, so far so good, but we recognize that it does take quite a bit of adjusting to bring additional students into the building from a kind of an operational standpoint, custodial, traffic flow, things like that have been somewhat overwhelming because so few parents, there's just an increased number of parents dropping kids off versus bus transportation right now.
Another irony, the concern about overcrowded buses has been avoided, but the traffic concern at our school buildings has been exacerbated. There's a question, those of you that are returning to full in-person, whether you're able to keep 6 feet apart during lunch.
In New Canaan, they've moved, we've taken over some of the gyms as extended cafeteria spaces. And I know that the kids are seating every other seat, and then they have some plexiglass barriers at some of the tables. So I think every school setup is unique, but for the most part, yes.
Great. And I see Katie says that lunch will be in the classrooms in her district. Other comments about these logistical issues? I think the return to full in-person, the realization that for many districts that does have to be a gradual process and going a few grades at a time. Obviously from the experiences we've heard this morning, seems to be a reasonable way to approach that. Comments about other issues? How are your board meetings going?
Well, it's about to be a civil war in Windsor, so I'm not looking forward to the fallout of losing our superintendent. So it's we're struggling, half the board, as far as getting our kids back in. One caucus wants everybody in 5 days a week, everybody in the classroom, and our caucus is like, no way. At a minimum, we should be doing hybrid. And if the infections get worse, we maybe take a look at maybe going distance. But there's definitely a small section of radicals in my town that wants to go 5 days with no regards to what the students and teachers are feeling. So those are some of the undercurrents that I'm fighting and trying to keep focused on that, and now going into a superintendent search. So it's going to be a tough sled up here for a while, but we're going to work hard to keep teachers and kids safe as much as possible. We've added some lunch at the high school and at the middle school. Well, I think the high school was going from 3 to 5, and try to keep the distance and the amount of way they pass in the hallways. So it's still a work in progress, but we're getting a slight uptick in infections right now, and we're trying to manage that. But it's creating a political battle behind the scenes, and we're trying to keep the politics out of the way here.
That's unfortunate when health and safety becomes a political issue in a community.
How are you all, this is Sheila, how are you all dealing with public comment? How is that working?
At your board meetings?
My meetings are still hybrid, and we're not allowing public comments at this time.
So in Westport, we just switched over from fully Zoom meetings to in-person this past week, but we are not allowing the public into the meeting. We're just having the board and the administration and any invited presenters, and we're continue to take public comment with the Google Doc links on every topic. I actually think it's working well. We get a lot more comments. So a lot more people are able to participate than would if it was in real life. And I think it's the responsible way to do it, because who knows, we can't control who's coming into the meeting, and I don't want to have to choose who gets in and who doesn't, etc. So for the first one, it seemed to go pretty well. And we're not having a lot of blowback so far about not being able to come.
Good. Let's see. Ridgefield also does their public comment through Google Doc link. Katie says the public comments are all online with only the board and the administration in person. Zach, you want to comment on what's happening in your district on public meetings? Otherwise, I'll read your.
Sure. Yeah. No, we're still 100% virtual in Westbrook, and we are allowing for public comment to be recognized via chat, and then we unmute the individual, and they get the typical 3 minutes to comment. And it's been going well. We've had very few comments recently. We had a lot in the summer.
Okay. Wilton is taking public comment through an email link.
Hi, this is Deborah. Middletown is, we have a bit of a hybrid model ourselves. Some of the board members are meeting at the high school where we're able to space out a little more. we're using the guards in our meeting as well that the teachers are using for their desks. Some of our members have opted to meet from home. As far as public session, we have a hybrid model for that as well. We have an email where the parents or teachers are able to provide feedback via email, and I kind of give a high level summary of the letters that we receive. We've also, our last meeting opened up the possibility for the parent to call in via Zoom. We get their information ahead of time so that we can kind of vet them, because we did have an incident before where someone did something a little outrageous. So we kind of vet them. We allow them to make their comments. We're going to see how it works one more meeting, and then we'll probably phase out the whole email process since the parents are calling in. But so far, so good. We do not have the public to attend our meetings.
Terrific. Well, that's great that you've used two different mechanisms and have now sort of narrowed down what's working most effectively.
Yeah.
Other comments? How are your superintendents doing? We know that they have been not only under incredible pressure. Well, Leonard, I know yours. And let me just clarify Leonard's comment. His superintendent left to take a position in another district. He is still very much alive and well, but he will not be in Windsor very much longer.
Katie, you've got a good one. Congratulations.
Thank you, Leonard. I feel I have felt what you're feeling, so I totally understand, and I feel guilty but happy at the same time.
You should.
So we know that superintendents have been under incredible pressure as they plan for reopening, as they navigate the delivery of education, as they face issues of the need to close schools when there are positive cases, primarily to allow for the contact tracing to take place. And of course, no one's had a vacation. So
yeah.
Are there things that you have done as board chairs to express your support for? You can't change the facts of the situation that they're dealing with, but certainly outreach to be supportive and maybe be that resource that can just listen when your superintendent needs to vent. Have any of you engaged in any strategies to be specifically supportive of your superintendent?
Yeah, for me in Windsor, when we did his review back in the summer, we discovered that he had not taken a vacation the entire calendar year of 2020. And Craig will tell you that one of the things I care about my employees is their mental health, and that they're happy to come to work, they're able to go home, be happy to go home, but more importantly, happy to come back to work. And so, it was a real thing where I had to just say, Craig, you got to take time off, spend time with the girls, spend time with your family, take care of yourself. And so I had to personally force him from time to time to take days off, because he was just so enthralled with the work within the district. And to the point where, we had to do some special considerations in his rework of his contract so that he wouldn't lose none of his vacation time, stuff like that. There was times I said, Craig, take a day off. So we did have those great conversations, but it wasn't like a board chair to superintendent conversation. It was more of a respectful Leonard to Craig, friend to friend type of conversation. Say, look, I need you healthy and well. Not only, I don't care about the district. I do care about the district, but if you're not alive and well for your wife and your kids, you're not going to be good for the district. So, those type of conversations have been very, very fruitful for us. And it has created a great work product from Dr. Cook and Windsor.
That's great. Others?
I'm with you on that, Leonard. They do not like to take the day off. We have that same issue. I mean, it's not an issue because they are so passionate about their work. But in Middletown, we have the same thing with Dr. Connor. I'm like, you have to take a day off. How are you? I try to check on them to make sure that he's okay. It's a lot. They have a big weight on their shoulder. They have a huge responsibility. This is definitely uncharted territory. So, you have to check on your superintendent and understand their mental wellness.
I think they're more. I think they're more afraid of the blowback that they may receive from the board, that they're taking time off during a pandemic when the board may perceive them as they need to be on guard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is truly not fair to the superintendent. That just creates a hostile work environment. So I'm sure this that may be dealing with political issues within a board that they got to navigate during normal circumstances. So now we got these circumstances. They just don't want to put themselves on the hot seat unnecessarily.
But there's also the assistant superintendent as well that should be able to step up and allow the superintendent to take some time off. So, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing that. We have a question about how live streaming is going for those districts that are using that technology. I know there have certainly been in Connecticut and nationwide concerns about student privacy issues. I admit I listened to far too many legal webinars, but student privacy and also in some cases teacher resistance to live streaming. Anyone want to share their experiences?
Well, we're doing it in Westport. I think it's going quite well. There's a lot of technology issues, and we actually voted at the board meeting this week to engage like a third-party help desk service for parents and grandparents in particular who are helping kids, because the technology staff, we've increased obviously the use of technology like multiple times over, and we don't have any additional staff. So, I mean, fortunately, we're able to find the resources within our budget to do that, but I think it'll help support the work of the teachers that there'll be a dedicated help desk for people with technology issues.
Other experiences? I know in some districts, simply the bandwidth capacity has been an obstacle to being successful until that's upgraded. I see Bob Mitchell nodding. Has that been a challenge in Montville?
Yes, we're finding that, we need to upgrade our Wi-Fi and our switches in our classrooms if we're going to be able to live stream. We can get about half of a hallway or an area can live stream, and then if too many more come on, it just drops out. So we're working on that. We're trying to see exactly what we need to do to upgrade, and then find the money for it.
A two-part process. I believe Nick is on. Nick, does the Connecticut Technology Council, are they working on that issue at all?
There's been, well, yes and no. I mean, the Commission for Educational Technology has been working with other sources to try to provide tools. Mostly, they're still trying to function on making sure students have something at home. So they've been really focusing on things like hotspots and such. There's been less emphasis on inside the school building. In fact, frankly, I can't recall the last time we had that conversation, because in the buildings where there's hardwiring, most is connected in one way or another to the CEN, which is a fiber network and pretty robust. But for those of you with buildings where you're dependent on Wi-Fi, that would be a serious problem. That's something maybe that I'll be bringing up with them, because it is something that, in fact, I chair the Digital Learning Advisory Council for the Commission, and we're getting ready to put an agenda together for our next meeting, and I think that would be a very appropriate thing to talk about. So I'm making a note right now.
Terrific. Thanks, Nick. Anyone else have any final questions or comments that they want to share? If not, then I think I want to thank Don Harris for sharing his Director of Special Education with us for this morning's check-in. And we will look forward to talking with you again in 2 weeks. Remember, we certainly are ready, willing, and available to help you at any point between now and then. I know senior staff has been in touch with a number of the people individually that are on this call. So on behalf of the CABE staff, we hope that you stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Have a good day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Hang this thing up.